Probably a lot of you know. Oh, thanks, Bini. Thanks, Bini. Okay, so a lot of you probably know me already. It's mostly the Cosmos community. So this is hopefully we're kicking off a first session in a number of, please God, sessions that will follow, to aiming to provide you with more value, more tools, more resources, trends that we're seeing, and more value during the year. So starting with our very Bini Maryles, I'm sure you know him. So I'm not gonna embarrass him in public and say all these great great but yeah, Bini himself ran a nonprofit and has definitely coached over the years hundreds of nonprofits, including some of yours. So it's a great pleasure and honor to be here tonight, and well, and we're looking forward. Bini, take us off, kick us off.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Great to have everyone here. More people will be joining as we continue. We'll have time at the end for questions. If you have any questions during the presentations, by all means, put them in the chat. And if I get a chance to jump in on them, I certainly will. Thank you those to participated in our little poll. So 2 questions were quickly asked in the poll. Is donor retention a current priority of yours? 9 of the 11 people who answered, or 82%, said yes. The other 2 said no, not yet. Certainly complete the following. Donor retention is something I cannot seem to get right. A few of you said that. All of you said it's something I should focus on because it's good for me, which is great. And a few of you agreed with me that it's something that stresses me out. That was certainly the case. So thanks everyone for jumping in on the poll. I appreciate that. That certainly was something that really did stress me out, donor retention. And it was not something I necessarily focused on all the time when I was actively and directly fundraising for different organizations. But over the course of time, and the appreciation of how valuable potentially it could be for me and the organizations I was working with, was certainly something that I really wanted to spend more time on. And it's a great pleasure for me to have this opportunity to share with you tonight. So here we go. So we're going to jump right in our immediate goal with what we're going to talk about today. I'll share the screen in just a second here with you. Live by the Zoom and die by the Zoom on the tech side. Okay, here we go. Is something that I like to call hidden in plain sight, hiding in plain sight, donor retention strategies for today. And the reason that that's the case, well, let's talk a little bit about me for just like 1 minute. There's a lot of years in organizational leadership, spent a number of years here at the company, worked with over 150 different organizations, raised a lot of money for a lot of people from a lot of donors in a lot of different places. And I really have one basic goal. My personal goal is really simple. It's really to have success, help people succeed, and also really mostly things that drive me most is about impact. I'm looking to have as much impact as possible in as many places as possible around the world. And so if you want to reach out and connect with me, by all means, the best place to really connect with me directly today, unless you're working with me directly, and hopefully you get that chance in the future, is on LinkedIn. Just DM me there. Happy to jump on a call with you, the opportunity to speak to you and talk to you about the work that you do and see if there's an opportunity for us to work together. So here we go. Hiding in plain sight is our focus. And 20 or so years ago, this very famous experiment that was done. It was called the invisible gorilla. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't seen it. The basic premise of it was that there was a video being shown, and in the video, people were able to watch a group of people passing a basketball around. And then at some point during the video, a person dressed in a gorilla suit appeared on the screen for a second, did a little bit of a dance, and then exited the screen. Afterward, they polled the people who watched the video to see if they had seen the gorilla. And about half of them had actually not, or more than half of them had actually not seen the gorilla while the gorilla was on the screen. And it goes to this idea of what's called selective attention. We have the ability to pay attention to some things, but not everything. And so on occasion, things that are actually hiding in plain sight, they're right in front of us, we're simply not able to focus in on, we're not able to zoom in on. We don't even notice them when they're there. Sometimes it's really obvious, and sometimes it's sort of subtle. as is the case with FedEx and the logo. And you see this a lot with logos, right? So a lot of logos will hide different things inside the logo. Maybe it's a word, maybe it's a symbol. If you know the one with respect to FedEx, then you know that hiding in plain sight inside the logo of FedEx between the E and the X is the forward arrow. The idea that FedEx is moving you forward. So it's subtle, right? Sometimes it's explicit and sometimes it's subtle. So in the case of FedEx or other logos, when you were a little kid and you had to sort of find the things that were camouflaged and hidden in the picture. So it's subtle, but sometimes it's really, really in your face. Someone is jumping out at you. They're basically saying, choose me, choose me, choose me. And when I think about it more and more and more, people who have supported you already, they've made a donation to your organization, are saying to you, pick me, pick me. They've already opted in. They're already in your database. They've already opened their wallet. They've already given you money. And they're hiding right in front of you. And what often happens is that we're simply not paying attention to them. We have selective attention with respect to them. Also, I'm going to move past that GIF because it's driving me a little bit nuts. I'm sure it is for you as well. And so what we have to do, and this is one of my favorite quotes of late, is we really have to think about taking advantage of the opportunity of a lifetime in the lifetime of the opportunity. It comes from someone named the Hip Hop Preacher, is somebody that I enjoy listening to, actually. His name is Eric Thomas, fascinating motivational speaker. And he uses this quote a lot. There are opportunities that are in front of us. Sometimes they're the opportunity of a lifetime. Sometimes they're smaller than that. But either way, there's only a certain frame in which they exist that we have an opportunity to take advantage of them. And when they go, they're gone. And so it is the case with donors. While they're with us, we have an opportunity of a lifetime with that donor to do something special, to do something great with that donor. But at a certain point, if we forsake the relationship, if we ignore the relationship, if we don't do anything around that relationship, well, then that opportunity is going to leave us and we've missed an incredibly good opportunity to support that. So it's really important that we appreciate those opportunities that are hiding in plain sight, which gets us to our subject today, which is donor retention. Donor retention is a very important subject with respect to fundraising. It's something that we stress about. It's something that we think about. It's something that we need to work on. And it's something that really can do a lot of good for our organizations. So we're going to focus on three things today. What is donor retention? That's number one. Why is it important for me as a leader, as a fundraiser, as a founder, as an executive director, whatever our role is in our organization? So why is it important? And number three, how can I improve my team's retention? We're going to talk about two very specific strategies / systems that you can implement really tomorrow that can really help you raise the level of your donor retention. While I have your attention here with you for a moment, just take a moment if you can, if you're interested, if you're willing, to just share in the chat where you're from. You don't have to tell us what organization specifically. I'm just curious to sort of see where people are joining us from today. It's a nice crowd of people that are here with us. So by all means, jump right in and share with us where you're coming from and how, anything beyond that if you'd like. So here we go. Goals for today, donor retention. What is it? So the what of donor retention. So what is donor retention? I'm not going to give you some sort of a Webster dictionary definition of it, but here's the basics of what donor retention is. Donor retention is holding on to your donors from one year to the next. That's about as basic as you can put it, as simple as you can say it. We have some people joining us from Israel. We have some people from Virginia, St. Louis, Missouri, Las Vegas. Awesome. Thanks for being here. A lot of really cool people from a lot of great places. Thanks everyone for sharing that with me. This is like an international experience for me. Cool. Okay, great. So thanks everyone for sharing. Again, any questions you have about what I have to say, by all means, share it in the chat and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to get to it at the end. So donor retention is holding on to your donors from one year to the next. The idea being, if you wanted to do the math of it, it's basically looking at, well, how many donors do I have this year? How many of those people came back the second year? Doing a little bit of math and coming up with a percentage of my donors that have returned. That's sort of the basics of it. It would seem that for a lot of us in the organizations that we run, that we would assume, and I think a lot of people do assume, that our donor retention rate would be fairly high. If people are supporting us, and we're able to subsist and continue year over year over year, that a lot of people would be with us along that ride. And the reality of it is not so. The reality of donor retention on average across the industry of philanthropy and giving nonprofits is somewhere between 40 and 45%. Let's put that into context. That means for every 100 donors that your organization has, between 40 and 45 are what you hold on for the following year. To flip that over, that donor attrition, the number of people who are churning, who are leaving you every year, is greater than the number of people who are staying with you every year. It sort of subtly explains that stress and angst and tension and anxiety that you feel as you're continuing year over year, trying to raise money for your organization and wondering why you're not getting ahead. One of the reasons you're not getting ahead or ahead as you want is because your retention rate is fairly low. So if you're over 50%, right, meaning more than half of your donors stay with you year over year, you're way ahead of the industry average. But the average is lower. Now, I've worked with organizations that have high donor retention. I've worked with organizations that have a lot of churn, even a heavier churn than what we're talking about here. But this is the industry average. Think about how much harder you're working, how much money you're spending in terms of acquisition of donors year over year to get people to join you, to support you, when in fact you have people standing there waving their hands saying, pick me, pick me, pick me. It simply is a question of what are we doing with our donor retention? How are we focusing in on it? What are we operating on to hold on to more donors? So here's a little bit of a math example that we like to share with a lot of people around this specific issue. So let's say your retention rate is 40%. So you're at the bottom end of the average for the year. And in year one, you have 200 donors. The average gift per donor is $150. So you raised $30,000 from that 200 donor group, right? Awesome. In year two, from that same group of people, you went from 200 donors to 80 returning. So 80 of those people returned to give you a donation in that second year. Even if their donation average went up, the amount of money that you raised from that group is now $13,000. And then in year three, the third year of that group, so you went from 80 to 32. So of the original 200, you're down to 32 donors. Even again, if the average gift goes up, you're raising about $5,800 from that group. Think about what's going on here. The total from that group then over the course of 3 years is $49,008. Okay, that's when you have retention at 40%. If you simply move from 40 to 50, simply, right? Simple but not easy. You simply move your retention rate from 40% to 50%, which means that from year one to year two, you held on to another 20 people. In this example, another 20 people. After you do the math, at the bottom corner where it has that total, you've raised another approximately $6,000 from that group. Now, this is a basic example of what we're talking about in it, but think about what's going on here. You went from 40% to 50%. You held on to, from the year one to year two, only 20 more people. It's 20 people who in theory could sit around your living room, could sit around your dining room table, who could be on a Zoom call like this. That helps you increase your retention rate from 40 to 50. That raises you another $6,000 just by holding on to those donors. So that churn, that retention rate is critical for the success of your organization, because these are people who have already given to you, have already opened up their wallets, and they're there for you to hold on to. And the question is, well, how do we hold on to them? And that's what we're going to get to ultimately in the course of the presentation today. So that was the first, is the what of donor retention. What is it? What does it look like? And now let's talk a little bit about the why. Why should I care about this? Now, if you're the world's greatest fundraiser and every year you're somehow able to, bring on 100% new donors every single year, well, then you're the most unique fundraiser in the history of the world. The reality of it is we can all appreciate, as you guys did in the poll when we started, that donor retention is something that's important to us. And here's what it means when we have a higher retention rate. Practically speaking, when our retention rate is higher, it means we have more returning donors and more returning money to our organization. It also means that you're doing good work that people want to support. These people who supported you in year one were now supporting you in year two, appear to have an interest in the value of the work that you're doing. Number three, it's another opportunity for your donors to keep giving to your cause. So higher retention rate, holding on to those donors, gets them into year two, gets them into year three, which is really where you want to be. As you continue to hold on to donors, so the lifetime value of that donor goes up, right? And the likelihood of their churn, of their attrition out, also goes down. So it's really important. We'll talk more about that as we go forward. It also means when I have a higher retention rate, I have more of an opportunity to make my donors feel like heroes. We're going to talk about heroes in just a couple of moments. I have more opportunities for donors to have an impact, because really what donors are looking at, really interested in, is making a mass impact on whatever it is that you do. And it's also an opportunity for you to go deeper with your donors. Deeper here could mean a larger gift. It could mean turning them into a monthly giver. It could mean some sort of a gift over the course of a number of years that's more sizable and substantial. It could be that, as we talk a lot about, which is peer-to-peer, that you can turn them not just from not into just bigger donors, but also people who are going to go out and raise money for you in some sort of a peer-to-peer environment as well. Like, that's a deepening of that relationship. It's not just transactional about their gift to you and you doing the work that they're supporting. It's them joining you on that side of the table and becoming ambassadors to help do the work that you do and really going out and helping you raise money. So it's really important that we sort of appreciate the business case for higher retention, what the benefits are, the pro side of higher retention. And then you can flip it over and see the downside of what that means. If your retention rate is really low, what does that mean about the work that you're doing? People don't want to stay with you. What does it mean about the nature of the relationships that you have with these donors? What does it mean about the idea that them not wanting to be heroes with you, that they'd rather go somewhere else and potentially give those dollars to another person? So higher retention rate means a lot of things, and it's really worth thinking about and worth discussing with your team and your leadership group. Now, if all those things are true, and that's what the case is with respect to higher retention, then ask yourself the question is, why is my retention rate low? Why am I not succeeding at a higher level? Why is this not true for my organization? Why is the industry level average hovering below 50%? That's not a good number, right? If we look at it in the context, to give it a sports reference for just a moment, 40 to 45% doesn't really get you into any record books other than maybe hitting in baseball. And I don't like to look at this as hitting in baseball. I'm looking at this as how many opportunities do I have as a free shot with somebody who's already in my book to get them to come back. So 40% with the people that I already know, oof, that's painful to sort of hear. So why is our retention low? So here's 5 reasons that I want to discuss with you here very briefly as to why it is that I think that people have low retention rates for their donors. Number 1 is what I like to call shiny new donor syndrome. When we do something, a project, an event, program, and we get a whole new group of donors, it's like exciting. It's like going into a toy store on some level or a candy store for us. And we meet all these new interesting people who are joining us from different places, who are supporting us now for the first time. And we're curious about them and we're interested in them. And the people who've been with us for 2, 3, 5 years, they're like an old car, like they're a little bit boring. They become like furniture. They're not as interesting to us either. We don't really focus on them anymore. We're so interested in the shiny, sparkly toy. And along that line is the reality that our leadership groups also fall into this too. So I remember from my experience, every year, it wasn't always the question from the leadership, board leadership, as to how many donors are we going to take from level 1 to level 2 donors? How many are we going to move into monthly? It was how many new prospects do we have? How many of the new prospects are you meeting with? Their focus was on the shiny new toy always. And it never was about the guy who moved from 100 to 500 from the last year, which is a massive increase percentage-wise in his giving, up to where he's going to be in the coming year. So shiny new donor syndrome is severe. And a lot of us suffer from it intentionally and most likely unintentionally, but it's there. It's important. It's not a judgment. It's simply just an acknowledgement of something that's actually out there. Number two, we do not, to some degree, prioritize the donor emotional payoff. This is something that our content director, Ramy Rubin, and I talked about a number of times, and he's preached about it actually a little bit, which is the idea that the donor experience is the emotional payoff of realizing the impact that their gift had. And that closes that loop on what it is that they did. So you ask them to donate because you have 100 puppies that need to get adopted, and they made that donation, and then the puppies all got adopted, and the donor never found out about that. So that takes them lower in their perspective and thinking about you and in supporting you. And so getting them that hit, getting that emotional payoff at the end of it is very important to sort of see the end of what they have. So closing that loop. Number three, we don't thank our donors enough. I know if that sounds crazy, we're going to talk more about this because this is part of our system and our strategy forward, is the idea of not thanking donors enough. And really we should be thanking them more. It's called like a thanks a lot kind of strategy because we want to thank them a lot. So we don't thank them enough. We don't thank them early enough. And so we don't practice gratitude enough with our donors to keep them coming back. They don't feel appreciated enough. Number four, we don't budget for retention. So what I mean by that is when we're planning for events and we're going to do a program, we're going to run a dinner, a gala event, a concert. And so we budget for the marketing, we budget for the venue, we budget for the talent, we budget for the food, we budget for the team that's going to be working on it. And then we're hoping to raise a lot of money, which is awesome. And we hopefully do. And then we don't budget for anything that's supposed to happen afterwards. So there's no money left in our plan for the retention apparatus and system and structure to be in place to then go and hold on to those donors. Maintenance is hard. Working up to something is also hard, but maintenance is actually hard. And so it's important to sort of appreciate that. And people admit that they don't budget for that part of the system. It's the same way that they don't necessarily spend the time thinking about the thank you before the gift actually happens. We'll talk about that too as we go forward. Number five, the last one, is we're not set up for retention. So our systems aren't in place for it. And so when we have to actually do it, we're like stressed out about it and we're overwhelmed by the idea of now going and having to not only continue to operate and continue to do the programs and continue to save the world and continue to have impact, we also then have to also do something that we're not set up for. And so our systems aren't in place and therefore we fail, because this is also very true. We do not rise to the level of our goals. This is from James Clear from Atomic Habits, one of my favorite books from the last year. An amazing, amazing read, Atomic Habits. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. People have amazing goals. They have outrageous goals sometimes. They want to do all kinds of wonderful things. But if the system isn't in place to accomplish that goal, that person will only have goals and will have no accomplishment. And so it is the case here also that the systems are vital to your success. And it's the combination of all these things as to why it is that our donor retention rates are lower than we want them or need them to be. It's not because we don't want to have higher retention rates. It's not because we don't have goals for it even. Some people even talk about it. They want to do something about it. They've even told us that they want to do that kind of thing. They want to hold on to more donors. You can give a person all the different materials potentially to do that, but if the system isn't in place, it's not personal. Again, it's not a judgment. It's simply an acknowledgement of the reality of that situation, that they simply don't have the system in place to do the work for them, to automate, to execute, to analyze, to assess, to judge, to cultivate, to engage in the way and the manner that they need to increase their donor retention. And so what we're going to then focus in on here is the how of better donor retention. The how of better donor retention is going to talk about systems and planning and strategy in advance that you, even if you're a single person practitioner on this, can actually accomplish with a little bit of work and a little bit of planning, a little bit of prep. But it's really important to appreciate that every organization must invest in a donor retention strategy. Every organization, it's not a nice to have, it's a must. You got to have one. You got to put one together. You got to figure out what it is for you, what it is that's going to work for you, and that's very important. And what you do with that strategy must be in the best interest of your organization and your donors. It's not just about your organization. We're going to talk a lot about this in just a couple of moments. It's about what's in the best interest of your donors here also. So we got to focus on this. And as we think about what am I going to do to increase my donor retention, as you think about that question, it will actually change how you think about everything. Once you start to think about donor retention, you start to think about people staying with you for the long haul, that changes how you operate. That changes how you think about everything. That changes how you focus on everything. That changes how you then approach every single event. If your events are now budgeting for retention, so then your budgeting system changes, your outreach system changes, your marketing changes to some degree by virtue of the fact that you're now focused also on donor retention. So a lot of different things are going to change. If you're able to hold on to 20+% more of your donors on a year in, year out basis, like a lot of other things might change also. You'll have a lot more money that you're going to be working with. You'll have a lot more donors who are staying with you for the long haul. Your relationships change with those people as well. So how you think about this question of what are we going to do to increase our donor retention will actually change the way you think about everything that's going on. And that takes us into the plan itself. So here we go. So let's take a step back for just a moment and think about for a moment why it is that people give at all. Why do people give? The main reason that anyone gives anything anywhere is because somebody asked them to give. That's the number one reason. The data shows it across the board. If we don't ask, nobody gives. So someone asked them. But the other reasons why people give is because a person asked them, right? People give to people to make an impact, to solve a problem, to be a hero. All of these are different reasons as to why it is that people give, right? And so we have to think about these things as we're thinking about holding on to donors, to think about all the different reasons why it is that a person gives and supports our institution specifically. And as we think about it, we want to think about what am I trying to accomplish? The first thing here I want to think about, what are my goals when I'm thinking about donor retention? So yes, ultimately it's about donations and it's about, supporting the work that we do. But the goal here is building an enduring and meaningful set of relationships. The money is on the end of that. So if you build the relationship, right, the lagging indicator is that people are going to support you for longer and make donations to the work that you're doing. So building the enduring and meaningful relationships makes men like the gentleman in the picture dance and makes them turn around and dance more, because how you do that is by making them feel awesome. Making donors feel awesome. Now that sounds some sort of like a trite sort of overstatement, and my donors are going to feel awesome, and it doesn't actually mean anything. We're going to put some sort of, heft onto that statement. What does that mean to make a donor feel awesome, right? How does that work to make a donor feel awesome? So we want to think about our goal is to build those meaningful relationships over the course of time, people that we're interested in, people that we want to be around, people that we want to partner with and support the work that we're doing. And we want to build those, and how we do that is by continuing to make them feel awesome. Now, how do we make people feel awesome? How does that work? Think about your own life for just a second. What is it that other people do that helps you feel awesome about yourself? They say nice things about you, they compliment you, they appreciate you, they want to be around you, they want to support you, they want to do things with you. It's a lot of different reasons as to why those personal relationships are retained and endure and they don't churn. Certain people around you. You ever ask a friend? This is like a test I did with somebody recently. I told him to ask his 3 to 5 closest friends why they hang out with him. It wasn't to sort of have them not hang out with him. It was the intent of to understand better who he is as a person from the other perspective. And so what it is that makes people feel awesome is what it is that we want to focus on in the work that we're doing. And so here is the plan. It is called the simple but not easy donor retention system, because it's simple in concept, but it's not easy to implement. It takes time to get rolling on this. It's muscle memory, like a lot of other things. Person gets moving into this. If you implement the system, then it starts to work for you. If you don't, and you sort of try to triage it every single month or every single year, you don't really get very far. So it's a simple but not easy donor retention system, and it really has 5 steps. The first 3 are prep steps. The last 2 are actually the implementation execution system that I really want to focus in on. So the first thing is setting goals, good goals and metrics. That's step number 1. Number 2 is segment your data. We're going to talk about every single one of these in just a moment. Number 3 is building your messaging and your content for your donor retention plan. Number 4 is thanks a lot about thank you. We call this internally also not just donor retention, but thank you strategy. When I do presentations and post-campaign summary sessions with people, I talk about thank you strategy, how we're going to thank people after we run a crowdfunding campaign. So we want to thank a lot. And the last one is what we call the ask, thank, report approach. And I think it's a system. It's not just simply like a strategy. It's really an implementable system that goes right into your calendar, which I'm going to show you in just a moment. So here we go. Number 1, important facts here about how this goes. You will be doing targeting for every single donors in this plan, some more directly than others, because you're going to have to choose to some degree who you're going to focus in on a little bit, which segments you're going to really target. But you're going to be targeting with your messaging everyone, just at different levels and in slightly different ways. Number 2, retention is rooted in engagement. You cannot hold on to donors if you don't talk to them, if you don't reach out to them, if you don't engage with them, if you're not around them, if you don't invite them to things, if you don't make them part of what you're doing. So retention is rooted in that engagement. If you're not interested in those people, it shows. And so it has to be an engagement. Number 3, every donor is awesome. So we talked about making donors feel awesome. Realize that you're making awesome people feel awesome or more awesome is sort of the idea here. That's an important fact about what's going on. They gave you something they had no reason necessarily to give you from their pockets, from their generosity. Number 4 here, this is a really important detail in this, but I'm going to mention here just a moment. Every donor is a monthly donor in this plan. What I mean by that is, instead of looking at the person as, oh, well, he gives me in September and she only gives me in December, and that's what I'm interested in them. If you take their gift and you split it out over 12 months, and you think about it as if they gave you every single month, then you will engage with them every single month. And when you do that, they give more money because they feel like, wow, like every month. So there's an organization that my wife and I support. I don't know how we got to them, but we did. And every month I get an email from them reminding me of how many lives I've saved that month in supporting that organization. I don't have a lot of money. I don't give them a lot of money. I give them what I can. But I have to be honest, when I get that email, I know what they're doing because I do this for a living, right? But I know what they're doing and it works. Every year we give them more money because they treat me, even though I give them in November, they treat me as a person who had impact every single month. And so they engage with me every single month. And the results are there because every year we've given them more money. It's a super important shift in the way we think about our donors. And the last one here on this list, retention must be an organization-wide practice. I talk a lot about with people that fundraising, everyone on the team is a fundraiser, whether they want to be or not. Everyone on the team is marketing, whether they want to or not. Everyone's also in on retention. So we need the board to support this. We need leadership to support this. And we need everyone else to think about it. Again, mention when I think about what I mentioned before, how you think about donor retention will change how you think about everything. And once you make donor retention a value of your institution and organization, it only roots that way when it's organization wide. And so it's important to have these conversations with the people that you work with, your leaders, the people that are in with you on the work that you're doing. Here we go. Step number 1. First and foremost, determine what it is that your current retention rate is at the moment. You can't measure unless you actually have a sense of what that is. So first, determine your current retention rate. Number 2, set a goal for year 1 of your increase in your retention rate. A legit goal, not like, oh, we're going to hold on to 35% more donors. That might be a stretch that you will never get to in the first year. So it has to be over 8%. So we're going to go from 45 to 50% in the first year, or 53%. Think about the math of how much money increased that came to you by virtue of making that shift, year 1 to year 2. That's really important. Set that metric. Next, measure then the year-over-year increase. This is the things that you want to look at when you're measuring this: the total number and the total percentage of donors from year 1 to year 2, the total amount and the total percentage of money year 1 to year 2 as well. So when you're putting in thing, if you can't measure it, you don't know if you did it. So it's important to set real metrics. Again, agreed upon metrics with your leadership is super important here. Let's all get on the same page on this subject so we can actually grow as an institution. And the last one is a bonus. If you can do it, awesome. Overall per donor acquisition cost. I mentioned it before, I'll mention it again. It is, I think, 5 times cheaper to hold onto a donor than it is to acquire a new donor. Think about what it takes you as a leader of your organization to get that person to give you $50. It costs money. You did an event, you have to send out emails, you have staff, it takes time, right? So I want you to think about how much you're saving and how much you're not spending on donor acquisition by virtue of holding on to people. So that's step 1, it's prep. Step 2, data segmentation. Establish and understand who are the people in your neighborhood. Who are the people who are in your donor pool on a year in, year out basis. So assess and analyze those segments. You can do it by donation size. So you want to break them up by donation size, giving history, donor age, path of entry. How did they get to us? Maybe that's a way to segment. The last one is lapsed, repeat, and downgraded donors, right? Different kinds of groups exist inside your donor data. It's important that you assess them and determine how it is that you want to go about measuring that. Maybe you're looking at this year specifically, people who lapsed from 1 year to the next, or people who downgraded, and those are the people you want to bring back up. Okay, and then determine the main target segments for the year. That's step 2. Step 3, developing your messaging. What stories am I telling this year for the sake of holding on to the donors? What different formats am I going to use and employ to tell those stories? And then how am I going to deploy that out? What's my sort of communication strategy vis-a-vis donor retention specifically? So am I using short or long stories, audio, video, photos, surveys, polls? We did a poll at the beginning of this. You could drop a poll into your annual communication structure. All that stuff is part of how you develop the messaging content strategy for your donor retention system. Now, all the things that we've discussed till now, step 1, step 2, step 3 are all prep. Here's step 4, which is the first that I want you to focus in on, is that when you're developing all that content, the direction of the content and the avenue in which that content focuses in on is because of you. You is not you, the executive director of the organization. It's not you, the president of the board. It's you, the donor. Because of you, donor, we were able to do X and Y and Z this year. Because of you, donor, 100 children went to school this year. Because of you, donor, 25 people got swabbed, and therefore 10 other people were able to get, I don't know, transplants. Whatever that is, the focus in the content is the donor. It's not marketing material. We're not looking to talk about how awesome we are and how much amazing things we did. We want to put it in the context of making the donor feel awesome, putting the cape on, making them feel like the hero. So the because of you strategy, this one also comes from Rami Rubin, our content director. Because of you strategy is highly effective and highly impactful. It's nice to hear about all the amazing things the organization does, but I admit I'd rather hear about all the amazing things that I've done. So when I get that because of you approach, it flips it over and it draws me in and it shows what I did and how much more I can actually do. And so here's the thank you part. Part 1 of the execution is thank you strategy. And it works like this. You run a campaign, you run an event, you have to now thank people. How in the world are you going to thank everybody? And so the first thing you want to think about here is let's break the group down. And so what I do here is I break my groups down into my top 20 and new, right? My above average and new, and then the below average and returning donor. I have like a different set of structures that I'm looking at because I want to understand who the donor is, who then has to contact them, when they have to do it, and how. And I'm thinking in my mind, this is my approach. It's a race. It's a little bit of a race. I have to get to some of these people really, really quickly after they made that donation. Otherwise, they're gone. If I miss that opportunity, then the lifetime of that opportunity is expired and I miss them forever. Don't get another shot at them. So I want to think about some of these people in a specific way. So the top 20% and new as an example, that's the first grouping here. Top 20% and new, meaning that a person gave you the first time and they zipped right up your scale in your top 20% of your donors. That is a flag. That says to me, the CEO of the organization, the head of the board has to speak to them immediately, and on the phone and ask for a meeting. You got to get inside that person's box to figure out why it is they moved so quickly to support you so quickly, so fast. And you got to stay in there so that that happens again. So each one of these different stages or different kinds of donors warrants a different kind of thank you. But what's really important to appreciate is that you have to thank them a lot. A lot. And this is sort of new. I don't talk about it as much as it should, but I want to talk about it here. I want you to get a second thank you out to them within a month of the first one. The data seems to show that a 3-minute phone call increases the likelihood of somebody donating again by some 30%. A second thank you increases that even more. So you thank them immediately upon giving the gift, and now you're thanking them again within a month of that first gift. You're skyrocketing your opportunities to get to a second ask from that same donor in a shorter time frame. You can use the same medium. So if you spoke to them the first time, you can speak to them again. If you sent them an email and that worked, send them an email again. It's a great way when you want to thank people to get a lot of other people involved. So I want to get my board members involved. I want to get volunteers involved. I want to get beneficiaries involved. I can do a thankathon. Those are highly value and effective events. They're fun and they're enjoyable and they're lighthearted and they're appreciated. And whoever gets that phone call ever, right? And so when you get that phone call thanking you for the gift, not just the first time, but the second time, through the roof, because you're 95 ahead of 95% of the organizations in the world who don't do this. For board members, this is the easiest phone call they will ever make for your organization. They don't have to ask for anything. They simply have to say, thank you. And if they're speaking to, likely if they're board members, high targets, high value targets, that's a value phone call, because then you can go to that person again and make that second ask. So we want to do a thanks a lot strategy. We want to thank people often. We want to practice that gratitude. We want to put that into motion so that we're able to really get to where we need to get to. I see you guys in the chat with the questions. I promise I'm going to get there. Okay, so really important that we do this. Having the board member, the president, I used to do this a lot. I have the president call certain donors. Having me call the donor is great, but having the president, who is not a paid employee of the organization, somebody who is also a lay person, who's a supporter, who's a donor, to jump in and make that phone call. So that's peer-to-peer support and appreciation. That's high level and high value and super duper meaningful. So we want to employ, the first strategy of implementation is a heavy thank you strategy right off the bat. When the campaign is over, it's not over. You're just moving into the next phase of it, which is what I'll call the post-campaign period, which is the thank you period of that campaign. Okay, the last part of this, and I'm going to take a question here. Here we go. Presentation. I have no idea. I believe so. Okay, thank you, Michal, for answering that one. Okay, so here's the next one, and this one's really important. We spend the next 7 minutes on this part of the presentation. This is a 12-month executable system that you can implement, what we call the Ask, Thank, Report strategy. There's the thank you again right in the middle of it, and it works really simple. In every 12 months, you're going to do a system and a rotation of asking for money, thanking for the donation, and reporting on the impact of that donation. And it sort of looks like this. Let's take it one step at a time. We're going to ask. The first thing we're going to do is going to ask for money. So we're making great asks of our donors that keeps them as the hero of the work that we're doing. Number two, we're going to regularly thank them, making the effort to engage with them and thank the donors, right? We talked a lot about that before. Now you're going to see how it fits into the larger picture. So we have ask, thank, and now report. Consistent messaging through varied media, outreach, and engagement to your donors about the impact of their donation. Got a little unstable there for a second. Ask, thank, report. What does it look like? We're going to get to that in just a moment. The how of this is like this. What does it mean for you as a leader? Number one, it means an additional piece of content every month. As I said, simple but not easy. An additional piece of content every month that's not your monthly update. And that's timed on your calendar, not the same week as your monthly update. So look at when it is that you send. Let's say you send the first of the month, you send an update to your entire donor base, your entire base. That's great. Don't do this the same week. Do this the second week or the third week of the month. Figure out the right time for you and your organization. Send this, and it's not a marketing piece. It's a thank you piece. It's an update piece to donors specifically. You can do another one for ambassadors, people who are peer-to-peer. I think that's very valuable, super important also to keep those people engaged. So one additional content piece a month, that's 12 pieces over the course of the year, not the date, not the monthly update, not the same week as the monthly update. And then you're going to go 5-to-1 on your thank reports versus your ask. So you're going to ask for money twice a year, let's say minimally twice a year, and you're going to thank and report on the donations, each one of those 5 times during the course of the year. That gets you to 12. See how we did that? Okay. So 5 times you're going to thank, 5 times you're going to report, twice you're going to ask. And this gives you the opportunity to organize a really good, structured system of communications for your people. Again, as I mentioned, you're going to target all your donors. Everyone's treated monthly, so everyone gets that hit. They get that emotional update hit about what you're doing. You're going to do similar messaging, just varied medium. So you're going to do stories, pictures, audio, video, email, WhatsApp, even maybe, depending on who you are and what organization you are, sending people something in the mail. It could be a calendar, it could be, I don't know, whatever it is. I'm not running to spend your money on postage and things that you're going to send in the mail, but potentially is the case that you might do that. So this is what it looks like. And you can make a second ask at some point later on in the year, and it looks like this. Okay. In June, you ran your campaign, starting on the left. You asked for money. It was great. In July, after you did the immediate thank you after that campaign ended, so that's like an auto from the system or whatever that is, you begin that thank you strategy that we talked about before. 20%, all that other stuff, returning donors. Thank again, immediate thanks again to those people. Number 3, you get to August, now you're going to report. So the executive director, that's the gray, number 3 as you're moving left to right. The ED sends a brief email update with pictures for start of the school year. Let's say you're in school, right? And so you're going to send pictures of the kids entering the building on the first day, or a video mashup of that first day of school, how exciting, and all the smiling children and whatever it is. It's very effective. It's very meaningful. And so that's your update about, well, because of you, we were able to bring 100 kids back to school. The next month, September comes in, and now you're thanking again. So the director of development sends a WhatsApp voice note, right? See how we're varying the different kinds of media. We're on the phone with somebody. We're sending them an email video. We're now on the WhatsApp. We're going to get a voice notes. They get a little bit of audio from you. So let's say it's the holiday season. September is around the time of the Jewish holidays. You're sending them on how awesome the holidays were. You're an outreach organization. And because of this donor, you were able to help bring 100 more people to your programs and events during the high holiday season. And you wanted to share that gratitude and that appreciation, that sense of amazingness with the donor. Month number 5, right, is another report. So in October, we're reporting again. It's a volunteer video. So now we're changing the person who's making the video. It's someone who's working with you, who's out in the field, who's helping those broken pets to be able to walk again, all that other stuff. That's your report. Month number 6, now we have another thank you opportunity. Maybe now you do a thank-a-thon because you know that in December, you're going to do an end of year ask. So on Giving Tuesday at the end of November, instead of asking people to give money, you're giving thanks, right? It's a crazy concept. I talked about that in the webinar, right? A different webinar. So the ED sends an email thanking and reminding people. That's one way to do it. That's nice. It's easy. It's in the office. You can make an event out of thanking a lot of people, and then you have a thankathon. Very effective, sets people up for the ask that's coming at the end of December. So you see how this works. This is half the year. Every month, it's one thing additional to what it is that you're doing. If you're doing nothing during the course of your now, so then I can't really help you. But potentially, this is the opportunity for you to go in and do a little bit more of what it is. And so the rest of the calendar shapes out the same idea. Every month, month over month, another thing that you're doing to get that out. It takes time. It's not an easy thing to start, but it's super important that you start. And if we don't start, we get nowhere. So it's important that we get in there, that we start, that we make that first one. People will think it's weird. If you thank people right now for a gift they gave 3 months ago, I promise you, they're going to wonder, well, that was weird. But if you do it again next month, and then the month after that, it becomes the habit. That's the atomic habits thing that I mentioned to you before. It becomes a system, that muscle memory built into what you do becomes highly effective and highly valuable, and it's going to skyrocket your retention rate because you understand what, the why, and the how of donor retention. So you've set goals, you've built a system, you're planning and executing on the thanks a lot, the ask, thank, report approach. What we do here with organizations is help them raise better so they can raise more, so that they can do more good. And with that, I'll ask for questions. So if you have a question, you can put it in the chat, or raise your hand, whatever that is, and we can go that way as well. I'm happy to take a few minutes worth of questions here on the subject of donor retention. As I said earlier, it's not an easy thing to do. It's certainly not to start, but like anything else, the hardest thing is the first one. And so to really jump in and start with that first thank you, let's say it's now almost April, right? So a lot of people are doing maybe a fundraiser in May or June. This is a great opportunity to sort of start the process where you're able now to do that thank you for a prior gift or send that update that you've been meaning to send, an impact update on the work that you're doing. It's a great opportunity to really do that right now. And so once you have that in place, the first one, you'll see there's engagement in it because it's not your monthly update. It's a donor update. And so that's meaningful and powerful to the people who are your donors, who are your supporters. And as you go month by month by month, so it becomes easier to do. You'll have curated the list a little bit better. The data is going to talk about itself to you. You'll sort of learn what's going on. You'll be able to go deeper inside the data to sort of see who's engaging, who's participating, who's coming to that event. It's not a donation event. It's just an event that you're having in someone's house, whatever that is. Who's reading all the emails. You can check that out on the back end, like a MailChimp or something like that. All those are ways that you can now do more in-depth analysis and homework and work to get better gifts, maybe bigger gifts. And as I said, the deeper, more meaningful relationships that are going on. It's a question that came up in the chat. Can you please briefly specify again, what is the difference between reporting to donors and thanking them? Thanking them is specifically just that. You just want to thank them for the work that they did. It's like a flowery sort of gratitude piece. They just want to thank them for the donation that they made. It's very short and sweet. The report is a little bit more in depth, where you're going into the space of, what exactly it is that their donation did. So it could be statistically based. You could say that it was 20, as I said before, maybe 20 people got swabbed. You helped another 100 dogs, whatever those things are. So you're getting more into the depth of it. It's also like the field report kind of an idea. So you're giving it a different feel and a different vibe, rather than simply just thanking the donor again. So it happened in the past where I would, when I was working at a certain institution here, I reached out to a group of donors after an event that took place on the campus of the organization I was working. I sent them a voice note. It was just thanking them. Like I had this sort of sense of gratitude and appreciation, because none of that would have been possible without them. I didn't get into the specifics of it. It was just thank you. It was just an appreciation for them. And so it's really valuable to sort of see that difference. There's certainly more depth into it than we can do in 1 hour, but it's certainly valuable. Next question. By report, do you mean a newsletter? You can call it a newsletter as you'd like. But I think it's not the same as the newsletter you're sending out on a monthly basis. You're flipping it over here. You're focusing on the donor impact and not just the marketing content piece that you're putting on, that's sort of like slapping yourself on the back. So flipping it over and showing them how it's because of their donations that all these things are taking place is really important. It could be the same material, like it's the same story that you're telling potentially, but you're telling it from the standpoint of focusing in on where the donor is rather than simply where the organization is. And so it's not simply that the organization is awesome, that's nice. The donor is awesome because of X and Y and Z that's taking place. So it's not the same as your average piece. It's the same thing that when you think about marketing videos are different than donor videos, right? So a fundraising newsletter is not a marketing piece. It has to focus on something that's being accomplished, that's being solved by the donor. So it's focused on the space from where the donor sits and not where the organization sits. And that's the difference here with reports. So I think it has to differentiate, it has to distinguish. I wouldn't go all in on 50 things that the organization is doing. I would zoom in on one thing in that report. That's the one thing I want to talk about. Yes, there's a lot of other stuff happening in our organization. And you can put that up on Facebook and on Twitter and wherever you want to put it, Instagram, but you want to focus here on one item that's really going on that donor is really having impact on. Next question. Is donor retention related to people moving, people died, the economic situation? Yes and no. I don't know how many donors are passing away or people moving. People can still support you even if they're no longer around you. It's simply among the many reasons as to why it is that a donor leaves your support system. Those could be among them. It's important to find out from a donor why it is that that donor left and to do that outreach. Hey, donor, skip it a year, ding-a-ling-a-ling, the bells go off and you want to know why is it that the donor left. It's worth that outreach to that person. Someone unsubscribes to your emails. Like, it sounds like a nothing step, but most people don't unsubscribe, they just ignore it, right? So if they unsubscribe to something there, it's worth then reaching out to find out what's going on. Next question in the chat. Another question that came up is this too much? No, it's not too much. It's really the right balance between, too much and too little. At the moment, for the most part, it sounds crazy, for the most part, most organizations are not doing enough. And I think this is the right balance. It sets a habituation and a ritualization of it. It's once a month, it's the second week of the month. I'm going to get my hit and I update my thank you for the work that this organization is doing. What people are getting most of the time is bombarded with marketing content. And that's what drives people crazy. Here, it's not marketing content. It's focused on me as the donor and the work that I'm doing in my gift. So it's reflective of me and what it is. Yes. Is there maybe some sort of an angle here? Certainly true. But the focus is really more on the notion of this is about me. It's the update about me and my support of the organization. There's never enough of that. So it's really important to sort of think about that's what's going on here. Next question. We are losing donors to our school due to high cost of living. If they no longer send their kids to our school, how can we encourage them to still support us? That's a really good question, Mark. Probably a different kind of question here. If they're stopping to send their children to the school because of high costs, there might be a much bigger conversation here beyond donor retention as a focus into just generally speaking about what we can do as an institution, as an organization, as a leadership group to make sure that we continue to get support from people who are still in our world. That is a good question, an important question. But I think it has different issues that donor retention is not specifically the focus of that question. It's a much bigger, broader question than the one that we're focusing in on here tonight. But it's an important question. Happy to make an opportunity to discuss with you separately. So that's my spiel on donor retention. It's a super important subject. I think there are ways for all of you to really jump in and do it better, perhaps, than you're doing it now, to simply improve upon it by building in the structure, by building in the system, and habituating and ritualizing it for you on a month in, month out basis, knowing that I know that the next month is going to be a report, so I can start to work on it now, as long as I get it to that space and get it to that moment at that time. My name is Bini Maryles, coaching at Cosmatch. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Bini. It's been so informative, and I hope everyone else enjoyed it. So if you have any questions, you can always follow up with us. You have our contact details, and looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Thank you, Bini.
Thanks so much. Everyone have a great day.